Britney Spears recently came to Instagram looking like this. And I don't know if you remember, but back in February of 2020, she broke her foot. And she did it again in May of 2024. But as you can see, her knee is completely busted. That entire leg is purple. That foot looks very swollen. But that's not it. Look at the contusions that are on her arm. That is about 4.5 to 5 inches in length. Not to mention, she's got over 17 bruises on that other arm, including all the way from her neck, her shoulder, her collarbone. She's got several on her upper arm, many, about 6, 7 down here, several on the upside. She even has a bruise on her other shoulder and one on her back. She has posted this video and deleted it over 9 separate times, and she did it again today, deleting it and uploading it for a 10th time. You cannot sit here and tell me that Britney Spears is okay. We have watched her decline for the last several years since she got free off of the conservatorship. She's danced with knives. She's hurt herself. She's hurt her body. She clearly is in the worst state she's ever been. And she wasn't in this much physical disarray even when she shaved her head and was attacking paparazzi with umbrellas, which she later apologized for. But her body didn't look like this when she did a 4-year Vegas residency. She did not have bruises and contusions all over her body like this. Busted knee, purple leg, purple foot, almost 20 contusions and bruises from her neck down. Not to mention this, humping public bathroom walls at a restaurant. This is not freedom. This is not girl boss. This is not bodily autonomy. This is psychosis. This is screaming off medication. This is screaming illicit use. This is screaming mixing it with a poison called alcohol. And anybody who loved and truly cared about Britney, they would recognize that she needs help. And she's choosing not to get that help. But she's mad about Kevin Federline writing a book. Why? She was allowed to. And she's allowed to talk about whoever and whatever she wants to. But nobody else can do that. Everybody wants to get mad that he wasn't working a traditional job while physically raising his kids that a court deemed she was not healthy enough to have custody of. But the moment that he actually does do something for money, then everybody criticizes him because he's the scapegoat. The Free Britney people don't recognize that he is the scapegoat for everything. Not thank you for raising the children for 20 years and doing so and making them good, decent human beings. Because no, it would not be any different if Britney Spears had daughters. In fact, those daughters would be speaking out, whereas her sons largely haven't. She comes, like always, with her captions for the last 5 years, blaming everybody. Her one-legged father stays away. Her sister, who she hasn't spoke to in many years, blaming her kids who live all the way in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii, or even blaming her mother, who lives states away. She doesn't have anybody. She doesn't have anybody else to blame. Not in the last 5 years. And if you guys haven't paid attention, she's playing you. She's playing you. She considers Instagram to be her part-time job, and this is fueling whatever illicit use she has going on. And that's fine, whatever it is. But when she's actually got contusions from here down, dancing in dog crap and with knives, I don't know. That's a little dangerous. At the cost of what? At the cost of what? Who's protecting her from herself? Her own mental health. She goes on to say this: the constant gaslighting from ex-husband is extremely hurtful and exhausting. And you don't consider everything that you've been doing for the last several years online to be hurtful towards your kids? Oh, but never mind them. It's all about Britney all the time. All about Britney, 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 Britney. I have always pleaded and screamed to have a life with my boys. And you did. It's your own actions, your own words, your own choices, and your own behaviors that stood in the way of that. Then she goes on to gaslight you by saying relationships with teenage boys is complex. They're adult men now. I have felt demoralized by the situation and have always asked and almost begged for them to be a part of my life. No, because you do weird things like humping walls while Jaden's trying to play piano, moaning and groaning like you're having intimate relations with a man while he's trying to play piano. He's so embarrassed that he's covering his face with a hoodie. Because he loves his mom and he wants his mom. He doesn't want his mother sick and unhinged. He just wants her healthy. But children, even turned adult children, can't have a relationship with a mental illness, a sickness, an addiction. She goes on to say, sadly, they have always witnessed the lack of respect by their own father for me. They need to take responsibility for themselves. Why, Britney? You don't take responsibility for yourself ever at all? Or what you've done to those kids? What you've done to literally ruin your own career and reputation. And that's fine. It's your career and reputation to ruin. But you could have at least sat down and told people the truth. Instead of trying to insinuate your addiction issues in your memoir, you could have actually came out and told them that you struggle with bipolar disorder, that you struggle with anxiety, depression, that you struggle with mania, that you struggle with substance use disorder and drinking. You could say those things and help other people. But she's so worried about wanting to be perceived as perfect. She's so worried about everybody looking at her a certain way. That expectation comes from nobody else but herself, because she has nobody else to blame today, right now, other than her own mind. And clearly, a sick mind is not a healthy mind. It's lying to her. She's even down here trying to tell you that she's a pretty intelligent woman, that she's trying to live a sacred life after she just said 5 years ago that she doesn't believe in God anymore. But of course, she goes on to say this. Pause and read this caption.
Jamie Spears is a flawed man. To be honest, my sons just wound up seeing their grandfather. They've been talking for years, but they just went to Louisiana and saw him for the first time since 2018, a couple months ago. Jamie Spears has gotten a lot of flack for the way he handled the conservatorship. And once the Free Britney movement started, it was just no stopping. It came from a good place, but it ruined a lot of things, right? And one of those things was just Jamie in general. Like, he took the brunt of all of that crap. Everybody deserves to be free, right? But at what cost? If it's at your own demise or your own self-destruction, I mean, is that really free?
Bingo. She's a slave to her own illness. And don't forget her very extensive DV and assault and battery history, including 2 husbands. Yeah, this is all public knowledge if you've really followed her career. This to me screams BPD, mania, but that's just my opinion. And there are treatments, medications, therapies that can help that. You have to be a willing participant. You have to want to engage in your own mental health in a positive and proactive way. And when you choose not to do that, instead of, gaslighting and deflecting to it's everybody else's fault, including her kids. I mean, that's just pretty sick what she's saying down here about her kids. This is her caption. She's obsessed. She's fixated, hypersexual, fixated on men, fixated on fairy tale, fixated on babies like crazy. But then talks to her own kids like that. Talk about embarrassing and taking accountability. And again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with having a mental disability or mental illness. But there is when you're lying to an entire movement of people who think that it's just because you were under a conservatorship. They don't see, because of HIPAA law, the medical records, why this person didn't get physical custody of their kids, why the conservatorship happened. And what you're seeing isn't a result of that. What you're seeing is a result of somebody that's not taking their medication appropriately, taking illicit substances, drinking, and has the freedom to completely do that at the cost of her own peril. I blame the Free Britney people because they're not true fans. They don't really care about her. They only want to be on the right side of history. Well, don't be surprised when something fatal happens and then all of this comes out. Because the truth will always come out. God will always make sure of that. And what is done in darkness will always come to light. Loving Britney Spears and wanting what's best for her doesn't mean placating her or kissing her ass. Ever.